IVM.
Hi and welcome to Know Your Kanoon. This is Amber from Corpus Legal. Today we'll be taking up tenancy law and rights in our country. And here are some of the questions from our listeners.
Hi Amber, my name is Rakshit. Could you explain the different forms of tenancy laws in India?
Tenancy, if you see, is what basically? Tenancy is an agreement between two individuals where one owns the place and the other one wants to reside and enjoy those premises. India follows different kind of tenancy laws. Since our independence, we've had one single major legislation, which is your Transfer of Property Act. Then there is the Rent Control Act. And subsequently, over the years, due to development in the respective, rights of tenants and evolution of law, most of our states have enacted their respective state laws. So let's say in the state of Maharashtra, there is the Maharashtra Rental Control Act, which is talking about controlling your rent in Maharashtra. There is the Delhi Rent Control. There is the Chennai Rent Control. So there are different across different regions. And each state has their own garb. Now, coming to the point, what law am I being covered by these tenancy laws? It depends upon what kind of tenancy are we into. There are basically three types of tenancies. There is statutory tenancy. There is lease-oriented tenancy. There is license-oriented tenancy. Common practice which we see is related to license, which is your 11 months of agreement where we agree to stay at a premise for 11 months and vacate then. Statutory is where you are under these rent control acts, like the Maharashtra Rent Control Act, where you're staying for a period of more than 11 months. Also, your leave and license agreement, which I was talking about, is also governed by the Easement Act and the Transfer of Property Act, where you are given something on lease for a period of time and where you have certain rights, unlike other agreements, which you can exercise with the, of course, approval of the landlord to a greater extent. Like a 99-year lease is where landlord would have less amount of control over the property for 99 years as you would have, which includes your right to modification, enjoying property and doing various other things, including enjoying the profits out of the property land due to some growing of crops, etc., whatever is there, which is shared with your owner. Whereas in terms of license, you don't have all these options. You just stay in the premises and vacate when the time is up.
Hi Amber, my name is Prerna. As a tenant, what are the laws that I must be aware of?
So first and foremost, you need to realize what kind of tenancy you are getting into. So most of us, whether you're a bachelor, so most of the problem is faced by the bachelors today as to what they don't know what law to approach, because every time they try to go to a society, they're denied that you're a bachelor. So you have to decide what kind of tenancy are you looking at. If you're looking to stay for more than 12 months, then I would suggest you look at the rent acts of the respective states. The landlord is not preferential of that because, with that law, what happens is you get the right to even sell that particular property and share the profits. The land would be landlords. To give you an example, I want to stay at a particular place. I approach the rent control authorities. Rent control act is there. I tell the owner I want to stay in this property for 36 months. You will see nowadays it is a no. Earlier it used to be okay because people would move in and vacate. But nowadays guys don't want to vacate the property. Once they're in, they want to kabza kehna kehte hain. They want to just own that particular property and take it into possession. Under the Rent Control Act, what happens is you become partial owner of the property you're staying in. Not on the land, but the particular flat which it is built on. So that is your thing. When you can also sell it, sublet it, but you have to share profits. So that kind of tenancy was possible probably in the olden days when there was a lot of trust between two individuals. Certain big companies go into this kind of thing because they need the premises for 6 years, 7 years, and every year for them to renew this license is not possible. You need to identify what type of rental, agreement you're getting into. So for agreements above 12 months, I suggest you go as per the Rent Control Act, which is there. If you're going for a short-term, tenancy where you are going to stay there for 11 months, then of course, your leave and license agreement. Third is lease, when you have a big property at hand. Suggestion is if you have a big property at hand and you have certain premises which are next to it, a lease is generally preferred because then you have more space and you're looking at a larger thing. So in all the three, what is the essence that you need to get the agreements registered? So the Rent Control Act, of course, is statutory. It will be registered. However, the others also, most of our individuals, just to save 5,000 rupees, we don't get our agreements registered, but it is something you must do to safeguard your own rights. It is not something the landlord will enjoy, but it will safeguard you against your rights.
Hi, I'm Vishnu. I'm a little inquisitive about the Pagadi system and how relevant is it in our current times?
Yeah, the old Pagadi system. Now, see, before India got independent, or maybe in the archaic times, and then subsequently until 50s, and even now in at least Mumbai, I have seen this. The Pagadi system is where the individual has taken a property from the owner for a certain amount of rent, which is very menial and non-taxable, and like pays 500 rupees a month to him. And with that, he also inherits the rights, as I was mentioning, as per the Rent Control Act, which involves, the right to sell, or, more individuals moving in with him. So what happens in Pagadi is the subsequent heirs also get their rights. It is not the individual. So if I demise and I pass away, my heir or my heir or my subsequent relative who was staying with me will inherit that right subsequently as well. And the Pagadi system continues like this because, see, the main owner, just to evade taxes at that point of time, formed the system. And he would just take a small rent and then you would just continue to enjoy the property, but you would never get full rights except for the possession rights of the flat. Now it got changed subsequently. Now Pagadi system is where I say, okay, fine, I am paying you this rent, but I am staying in this property and I also have the right to sell a certain portion where I'm putting up in the property. So I get that vested right in it. In Mumbai, it is a major issue because redevelopment has started to happen. And a lot of these old properties are subjugated to redevelopment, but sometimes the landlord wants to redevelop and the tenant does not want to because there are costs involved. Sometimes the tenant is wanting to do that, but the landlord is hesitant. So the Pagadi system was based on this. Like the whole concept was based on tax-free small rental where both enjoy the rights to the property. It is legal in state of Maharashtra. It is legal in Delhi in some portions. Of Maharashtra, it is under the Maharashtra Rent Control Act. The Pagadi system has been specifically mentioned as a separate acceptable form of tenancy. It is still working. I'm not amazed, or you wouldn't be amazed to know that in South Bombay, you might find somebody living in a small portion of property and just paying 500 rupees a month as rent and still enjoying. And the landlord would be like, he's not vacating my place. But that is one system which continued and now they are stuck with the arrangement. So it is valid and legal. In fact, the new last year, I think, if I'm not wrong, there was a legislation passed in the state of Maharashtra where they said redevelopment of these places can happen. Owner is not the only guy who can initiate it. The tenants can do it. And for that, they'll need at least 60-70% of the tenants staying at that place to have agreed that, we want to change and form a small committee and then go ahead with it. So Pagadi system is well legal in established practices wherever it is happening after the independence.
Hi, my name is Divya, and I'm a little concerned about what calls for an eviction of the tenant. Could you also clarify if it is mandatory to register the lease or license deed or rent deed?
I'll talk about all the rights under this one particular question as to what us as tenants have to go through, because I'm myself a tenant. There's a very thin line of difference between what my constitutional right is to enjoy the property and what will cross that line. So there is a central body which governs all these societies, because what happens is today you see we get irritated at every small thing and say, this is my right, because India has learned the concept of this is my right without knowing what our right is. So to give you a point here, we are governed by the Cooperative Societies Act as far as our housing is concerned. That act gives the power to these societies to make bylaws, wherein they may make certain bylaws which define a particular procedure to be followed. Then there are certain bylaws which are also unconstitutional. We have the right to defy them, and they do not stand fast in the eyes of law. So coming to that point, what are my rights? What you need to understand is when you move into a society that everything is spelled in an agreement, is very clear with the owner. You have written it down, you have mentioned what it is. Nothing should be said because, in today's times, tomorrow you have an issue, the owner would just refute and say, I did not pen it down. So ensure that in the agreement you have penned down everything. Then see what is right in terms of the laws which have been made by the society, which are constitutionally valid. I have had certain instances in the courts where individuals have been told that, you can't have more than 2 guests over because you're staying there. Now, in terms of emergency, in terms of you wanting to recreate because you're new to the society, if you are reasonable, and what is reasonable? Reasonable is where you are reasonable in your terms of exercising your right of possession. You're not causing any damage to the property. You're not causing any damage to the society. No hindrance to any society members. You can have as many people as you want and you cannot be stopped with that. If you feel you are being stopped, please approach a rent control court. Please approach the cooperative court. If you don't have a cooperative court, the last resort is consumer court. And consumer court is not for your personal differences, just to highlight the point. Consumer court is about deficiency in services. And the deficiency in service here is that you're not allowed to enjoy the right of possession where you're putting up with. Howsoever, I'm sure you would have also been aware of situations where you are being discriminated basis your caste, community, eating non-veg and very other stupid kind of, vague reasons where you're denied your tenancy. Under those concepts, what you need to really understand is it your constitutional right which is being validated or being violated? Yes, it is. In that situation, you have full right to approach the civil court and proceed with it that, my constitutional validity is being challenged here. So you need to understand what is the correct way, how it is. Coming to the point again now of eviction, please pay your rent on time. The biggest excuse which every individual has is this guy does not pay me rent on time. That is the excuse they take initially just to throw you out of your society. Please pay it on time. If the landlord is not accepting rent in cash, pay by check, send a money order, deposit in the rent court. These are some of the safeguards which we don't know. If you deposit in the rent court, and for the past 3 months, when does this happen? For the past 3 months, if the individual has not been accepting, or let's say a time frame, like say 2 months, 3 months, you've tried contacting the individual, he's not taking the rent, go to the rent court, deposit your money, and then give him a notice. Send a money order. Do everything possible that you can to, communicate effectively. Do not cause damage to the property. By damage, I don't mean small moderation or alterations. Damage means something which causes land depreciation or asset depreciation of the particular property. Ensure that you have enjoyed all your rights within the bylaws. Do not have unlawful activities. It is lawful for you to run a shop in your flat with the permission of your owner. The society cannot have an issue with it. With you as a tenant, the issue is with the owner. Howsoever, if you're running a small place of business, it is not an issue. So most of the individuals are generally harassed by saying that you can't run this here. If it is a legal business which is registered and is not causing any problem to anyone, go ahead with it. Eviction happens on 4 major grounds. First is you as defaulting. Second, you as causing unlawful activities. Thirdly, you extending your rights of possession beyond than what it should be. Where annexing someone else's parking, you are causing some kind of blockage to the society. You are acting in a manner which is not befitting of a civilized individual in a society. And lastly, if you tend to go overboard in terms of bringing a lot of individuals on a funny note, that would also cause, because generally what happens is bachelors staying at about 10-12 people have a huge party. Please maintain the decibel levels below a certain level and you won't be asked to evict. Also, in today's episode, what I would like to bring forward to all our listeners on certain issues like parking charges, on certain issues like parking areas, on certain issues pertaining to the levy of certain charges by the society on its members and how do we go about it. So I would like to bring certain things point by point, for coming to the point of parking. Now you see, as a tenant, I do not have much of a parking right in the society. It is the owner from whom I am dwelling this particular right into my own space. So I cannot be charged separately a parking rate. If I am being charged, it has to be informed to my owner that I am paying this. If he's okay with it, then to a degree, I should also be fine with it because it should be a bylaw. It is not something that individually I am being subjugated to. Basis the car I own does not mean that if I own a high-end or a high-priced car, I am supposed to pay a certain amount of high-end rent or a particular property charge or whatever a society charge. That is not acceptable. Also, if you feel particularly that there's a charge which is exorbitant and levied onto you as a tenant and you are not getting those services which were promised to you, like in olden areas in whether any of our cities which are considered very prime, you see the societies do not have all those facilities as modern buildings, but yet people end up paying 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 as maintenance charges. If those are not proportionate to the amount of services and amenities you are being subjugated to, please ensure that you approach them. Your second point here, which you can put forward while you are being a tenant ever to your society is in terms of, my right to particularly enjoy the premises, which is, let's say, if I have visitors who want to park their vehicles, what do? Now, most of us don't know that at least the local act says at least 25% of our parking in the premises has to be registered for the visitors. It was 10% earlier, it has been increased to 25%. So they cannot say that your visitors can't park their car, park it on the road. Ultimately, that is very vile. Saying 25% is indeed a quota, so please be aware of that and you can raise this issue. See, this is not a personal issue. This is again an issue with the society. So this is a consumer issue. You can raise that. Coming to the third point where you are accorded a parking space in the society. There is some redevelopment work, your car gets parked somewhere, something in the construction zone is there and falls on your car and causes damage. What do you do then? Most of the time society says, we informed you, we did that, we send a guy, you're supposed to go through this. You're not. There is a service right which you have, which means that society is a service provider, you are a service recipient. If there is something which has caused you damage in all reasonability, please ensure that you file your consumer court case and demand that money, because consumer court has accepted this, that this is a service provider organization, the society, it has to provide the services. Any deficiency, the tenant has to be compensated. So these are some of the issues we need to look into. Also, for our listeners, I'd like to bring to your notice that, going to court is not the right solution initially. Owner has to be involved on each steps legally. Whereas if there are neighbors or if there are individuals in the society who are tend to be very biased to you, please, then the whole gambit of civil courts is over. You need to approach the police. But what you need to ensure is that you address the issue to the redressal committee in every society. I mean, mostly you'll find there is a redressal committee. If there is no redressal committee, try to get into a dialogue with a mediator in between, not a legal mediator. Approach the court for only hassles where you are being hassled. Go to a mediator first. Ask the mediator to get in touch with you. He will address both the issues. Because it is a lengthy process, you will end up wasting a lot of money. You will end up doing a lot of things, but only do it when you realize that, there is no way out of it. I mean, getting into a fight is not the solution. I've already said bylaws are not constitutionally valid. Not all bylaws are valid. You have to ensure and determine what is reasonable. Thank you for listening to Know Your Kanoon. For more queries and questions, please contact me at contact@corpuslegal.in. Catch Know Your Kanoon every week on the IVM website or the app or anywhere you get your podcast from.
Hi, I'm Vishal Gondal, an entrepreneur. I've had the chance to meet and understand how some of the super achievers have hacked their way to success, and they have done spectacular innovations. Now I take a closer look at these people's lives to find out what lies beneath the force, only on the Vishal Gondal Show. Episodes out fortnightly on Wednesdays on the IVM website, app, or your favorite podcasting platform.
Did you know that Parsis in Mumbai, instead of being left at the Tower of Silence after they die, are now cremated? And why? Because a cow fell sick in the early 1990s. Did you know that the smog in Delhi is caused by something that farmers in Punjab do and that there's no way to stop them? Did you know that there wasn't one gas tragedy in Bhopal, but 3? One of them was seen, but 2 were unseen. Did you know that many well-intentioned government policies hurt the people they're supposed to help? Why was demonetization a bad idea? How should GST have been implemented? Why are all our politicians so corrupt when not all of them are bad people? I'm Amit Verma, and in my weekly podcast, The Seen and the Unseen, I take a shot at answering all these questions and many more. I aim to go beyond the seen and show you the unseen effects of public policy and private action. I speak to experts on economics, political philosophy, cognitive neuroscience, and constitutional law so that the insights can blow not only my mind, but also yours. The Seen and the Unseen releases every Monday. So do check out the archives and follow the show at seenunseen.in. You can also subscribe to The Seen and the Unseen on whatever podcast app you happen to prefer.